everybody, to the ATL Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Shepard. I'm joined today by head coach of Piedmont University Baseball, Justin Scali. We got an action-packed show for you today. We're going to be talking about social media and recruiting and how you can use that to your benefit, how college coaches use that in their recruiting process. We're going to talk about recruiting services, what your online profile should look like, and then we're going to discuss understanding roles in college baseball, handling success and failure. If you're new and you like what you hear, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So without further ado, Coach, how we doing?
Great, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. You were, of course, going to be on the short list of guests soon. As I've said, I believe in what you guys do there. Your knowledge knows no bounds of baseball and the recruiting process and how that goes. And you've done it a long time. And I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you joining. And we'll have a pretty good conversation today. Hopefully, people can take with them some new things and different perspective. But why don't you go ahead and, for the people obviously that don't know you as well as I do, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you came from, where you are now, and where you plan on going.
Sure. First off, thanks so much for having me. It's always a treat for me to be able to talk baseball with one of my longtime friends that I've known for a long time, on and off the field. So what a treat to be on here. But yeah, like you said, Coach Scali at Piedmont University. It's my 20th season coaching here at Piedmont. It is my 8th year as the head coach. I was an assistant for my first 12 as our pitching coach. Played Division III baseball at Methodist University in North Carolina. Coached my first 2 years after graduating, coached at Ohio Northern University in the OAC up in Northwest Ohio. Coached there for 2 years in 03 and 04. And then came to Piedmont in August of 04 and thought it was going to be for a 2-year spot as a GA, and haven't left. So I've had the privilege of coaching here now longer than most of my players have been alive. But no, love where I'm at, and love a chance to come on and talk some baseball with you, man.
Fun fact, the uniforms you guys wear are actually 20 years old. No, I'm just kidding. We've given Coach a hard time about his uniforms for a while, so much so that we shamed him into buying a brand new set of Nikes, and now I follow Piedmont Baseball's Instagram, and I just see pics of Scali's shoes day in and day out, the fresh kicks that he's rocking. So no, I'm kidding. Speaking of the Instagram, the first thing today that I want to go over and get your thoughts on social media and recruiting. Obviously, that's changed so much since you started coaching, since I started coaching, I started playing. How do you use social media in recruiting, or do you not use it? What do you do with that?
Yeah, definitely a great tool for us. It really applies more in the early stages. If we get a interest of a player that we don't know a ton about, or maybe one of my assistants has seen someone play, and man, it's such a luxury to be able to just go to a player's Twitter page, pull up some videos. So us as a staff can kind of cross-check just from some video. We had a really nice player on campus today, and we were able to pull up some video to familiarize ourselves with him because one of my assistants hadn't seen him play. And just the ability to have that and to have that just right in the palm of our hand is so valuable. I think once we've seen someone play a few times, it maybe doesn't quite have the same level of value, I think, from a recruiting perspective. But I would say the other way we've used it is to help promote our program. I think about the job that our athletic communications staff does here. Danielle Percival and her team in promoting, Piedmont baseball, whether it's live tweeting games or, the photos, the videos, the broadcasting, all of that stuff is happening while we're just in the dugout trying to coach and trying to win a game. So when a recruit, a prospective student athlete is looking at our program, they have an opportunity to hop on our social media and maybe familiarize themselves with our facility, with our team, with how nice those Nike uniforms we have are,
The
and all
drip.
the gear and all that stuff, the drip, if you will. No, but seriously, I think it's a great step in the front of the process when you're trying to familiarize yourself with a program, with a college program, or for a college coach or college staff to familiarize themselves further with, you as a potential player.
Now that hits home, especially when you talk about promoting your program. I mean, it's one of the reasons why this podcast and YouTube is here is what can we do to further help our families, not just getting the word out there about our players and who they are and the knowledge from all these interviews that hopefully they watch or listen to. They can go on and they can go on the Twitter, or they can go on YouTube, and they can listen to coaches. I think the best feedback I always got was when we would run our own camp, and at the end we would have coaches do a panel, a Q&A, and let parents ask questions and whatnot. And I would love to do 3 or 4 of those a year and bring in coaches from all over, but it's just not always feasible. But hopping on an interview like this and posting it to social media and whatnot, that's free, right? We can do that easy. It's I can't fly in Denison and also fly in Maryland and whatnot. This has been an avenue for us to do that. So you think having a Twitter page with videos posted, kind of like a separate page, maybe then their normal Twitter is a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ability to, if you're, pursuing college baseball, the ability to market yourself to college programs in a number of ways. Social media is certainly a big part of that. Whether it needs to be a separate page or not, it kind of depends on what else you put on there and what you're using it for. I think, I'd be lying if I said we didn't look at players' social media stuff when it's publicly available as we're in the recruiting process. Because sometimes, rarely, but sometimes you can see some red flag things there or some concerns. But most of the time, it's, what we find is, especially with a recruitable, junior or senior in high school, they're going to put some of their best stuff on there from a performance standpoint. And boy, is it nice for us to be able to access it. But it goes, with your organization, the fact that you all know the level of play, you've seen most of the schools in the Southeast play, having that knowledge of, the types of players that have been successful in our program, that's a big part of it from our perspective. The prospective student athlete is working to build a relationship with the college coaching staff or the university and in general, but we work hard to build relationships with high school coaches and travel organizations that have some familiarity with our program and who has been successful here, because those inroads, that cuts a lot of the lead time out and allows us to be most efficient with our time. People like yourself and your organization, it's just so helpful because you've seen us play. You know what players have been successful here. You know what kind of athlete we may be looking for. And you're honest with us. This guy might be a reach for you, or this guy, is probably right there in the sweet spot of what the type of guy that's been successful for you. Or even if it's a situation where it's like, hey, coach, I know you saw a good day. That might have been one of his better days. But just the honesty and all that. But yeah, I mean, social media is certainly a big part of it, especially, like I said, in the initial stages.
I think that's been one common theme of most of the guys we've talked to, and we've known that to be true, but sometimes parents and families and players don't, is the relationship aspect of who can you call up and you trust what they're going to say. They're going to give the stamp of approval, and their stamp of approval carries a lot of weight. And, being familiar with your program, that's huge. We haven't had, unfortunately, anybody that's, went to Piedmont from our organization, but we always used to joke when we were at Oglethorpe, that guy's a Piedmont player. That guy's a future line. It's like, you see molds of kids, and you see their grades, and you see their athletic abilities and how they carry themselves. And that guy looks like he's going to be that as a Rhodes player. That is a Piedmont player. That's a Birmingham Southern player. And it's kind of like their build and everything encompassing into one player is you end up recruiting a lot of the same guys, which you guys are very successful. So, I wouldn't change a thing, but being able to identify what you need in your program or what has been successful, I know has helped a ton for us when we have a lot of kids, a lot of programs that have more than one kid from our program. So it just hasn't happened with Piedmont yet, but that doesn't mean it won't down the road. For whatever reason, I would send you guys, especially for pitchers. I mean, we tried to this year. It just didn't work out. I mean, I remember talking to one of our players that you guys were recruiting, and he said, out of these three schools, like, where should I go? I'm like, if you want to be the best pitcher and you don't care about location and academics and anything else, if you're just talking strictly baseball, you go to Piedmont. Because I don't know what you do with them up in Demarest, but whatever it is, it works.
Well, I appreciate that. It certainly starts with recruiting good pitchers. I think it's more about the kid than what we're doing with them. But we certainly, and I'm sure most of the at least the college guys you've had on, they've kind of got their, as you mentioned, man, you hit the nail right on the head. There's a type of guy that we're going after. Because what I think it boils down to is we know that this skill set can be successful within our style of play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you see that on the mound, you see that positionally. A great example of that is we had a transfer last year, grad transfer from a school in our league. And we saw him, competed against him for, a couple years. And he was kind of a part-time player for them. He was in the lineup some, out of the lineup some, and came into our program. And, he was coming from a program that, the coaches do a great job. So it's not that they don't, coach the heck out of their kids. They certainly do. But what I think maybe the difference is our style of play was a little more in line with, his strengths maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And he just had a big year for us. And I remember, just being so grateful we got him, but also really feeling like I've seen it go the other way too, where we've had a guy that just for whatever reason wouldn't click here, didn't just, wasn't getting to maybe his potential, and unfortunately ended up leaving and having a good finish to his career. So I think that style of play that you kind of reference of that type of skill set, whether it be on the mound or, positionally, is going to fit well with how they play. Specifically to what we do on the mound, I guess to dip our toe into it for a second, it's really, the things we tell recruits that we're going after, pitching recruits, it's really four things that the best pitchers we've had do well. Fastball to both sides of the plate. Have to be able to pitch in. If you can't pitch in successfully, you're not going to get good hitters out. Number two, command 2 off-speed pitches for strikes, and the ability to do that when you're behind in the count. So can we throw off-speed pitches for a strike in a hitter advantage count? Number 3, field your position. You don't have to be a wizard, but you have to be able to make routine plays. And then number 4, you have to help us control the running game. Again, you don't have to pick people off, but you have to have a semblance of how to stop the running game. We run a ton here offensively, so it's certainly the ancillary benefit of that is our pitchers in the fall get kind of abused if they're not ready to stop the running game because of how aggressive we are on the bases. But in a nutshell, on the pitching side, it's really those four things. And if I look back at the successful pitchers we've had, I would tell you they all do those four things really well.
You're the second, maybe the third coach we've had on that has discussed, actually, you are the third, controlling the running game, because it drives me. It's probably the one thing about travel ball that drives me insane is guys that are 1.5 to the plate, 1.6 to the plate, and half the time the other teams don't. In travel ball, they don't pay attention to any of that, right? Like, if the kid is fast, he's just going to try and steal. If he's not fast, he's not going to try and steal. But at the college level, it comes down to, like, numbers. So you may have your slowest guy on the roster. If the numbers are right, like, we're sending him. I mean, and to try to get high school pitchers to understand, hey, maybe the other team isn't running, but that doesn't mean you could just pitch at a 1.6 to the plate, because the time that you do and the time that they run is the time that they're going to be safe. But you also need this skill moving forward, going to college. Let me ask you, for high school kids, what's the best way for them to, because you'll get a lot, well, when I go to a slide step coach, it's I'm too quick and I can't throw strikes. What's the best way to break out of that?
Well, for me, it starts with our daily work, and our bullpen work. I would tell you we throw probably about 80% of our work in the bullpen is going to be out of the stretch, and over half of that's going to be out of the slide step. Like, you have to, if I poll our freshman pitchers every fall and say by show of hands, who's more comfortable out of the windup, versus the stretch, it's going to be the majority. I know I was, coming out of high school. So part of getting comfortable doing something, is you got to practice it. So we throw all of our flat ground work on a daily basis. It's thrown out of the stretch with being mindful of our time in the plate. Again, we do benefit by having to, stop us. We talk a lot about stop us in practice. I'm saying we talk a lot about something I say to our pitchers all the time. It should take 3 singles for us to allow a run. And when you think about that from a standpoint of, that means we're not walking people, we're not allowing stolen bases, we're not wild pitching people, we're not hitting people, and we're not throwing balls in the middle of the plate where we allow, extra base hits, right? So it should take a third hit to score a run, and hitting is very difficult. And getting 3 hits in an inning is very difficult. So if you limit the amount of things that you quote, give the opposition, the 90-foot, the stolen base, the wild pitch, it's amazing, those ancillary 90 feet, that 90-foot advance. You get a guy on base, he steals second, there's nobody out. We can score that guy without a hit now. We can ground out to second and a sac fly to center, and you just allowed a run on 1 hit.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all been there, right, coaches?
Oh, yeah.
Most of these places at the end of the inning, they say, the announcer, the PA person is like, 3 runs on 1 hit, 1 error, and no one left on. And it just, when I hear it and the runs exceed the hits, it just is like, it's a gut punch. You'd rather hear, like, if it's 3 runs, I'd rather it be on 7 hits.
Right.
At least we're attacking the strike zone. So I think, to answer your question, for a high school player, how do I become more comfortable working quicker to the plate? It's the knowledge of what is a good time to the plate and how is it timed, because I'll even get some kids that don't really have that necessarily equipped yet. But then also, how do I go about executing pitches from a slide step? What mechanical adjustments do I need to make with my arm stroke? How do I ensure that at foot strike, my arm is in a proper position to dominate the top of the ball? If I'm trying to throw the ball to the bottom, or, as the string, as we like to call it, how do I get my hands apart in enough time? What is my physical adjustment to deliver the ball to the plate in 1.2, 1.3 seconds? Because it's not about the caught stealing or the pickoff. It's about limiting the attempts,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what limits our attempts from an offensive standpoint, Number one is the pitcher catcher time combination.
Oh yeah.
If that's a good combination, it's now a risk if you're going. So the pitcher catcher time combination is the fastest way to stop a good base running team. Um, so for me, it's about you got to dig in your flat ground work. You got to dig in your daily work. You've got to work in the bullpen out of it. Um, we don't omit the windup, obviously, but we're going to spend 80% of the time in the stretch. And I always ask them after that question of who's more comfortable from the windup. I follow it up with, is the biggest pitch of your life in this program going to be thrown out of the stretch or the windup? And of course, it's a stretch. It's going to be runners on, right? And then I said it's probably going to be out of the slide step. So let's embrace the fact that that's harder to do, and let's embrace the fact that we need to emphasize how to be good at that. And it's definitely a learned skill because, as you mentioned, in travel baseball, high school baseball, it's de-emphasized some. So guys with really good stuff just kind of get some swing and miss and go out there and overpower, and they don't have to commit to being cognizant of the running game threat.
No, I agree, and I'm glad you mentioned your most important pitches are going to come from the stretch. I mean, your highest leverage pitches, it's not realistic to think that you're going to throw most of your pitches out of the windup, right? Like, as soon as someone gets on, you're just immediately in the stretch, and you're in the stretch until you roll double play or they score or whatnot. And if you don't, so many guys throw a bullpen and it's just wind up, and they don't ever throw from the stretch because they've never been taught it, or they don't think about to do it in the bullpen. But it just doesn't, like you mentioned, it doesn't just magically happen and you just magically become great at it, right? You have to do it. And so I think, that's probably another reason why you guys develop pitchers the way you do is they're throwing from the stretch a ton all the time. And it's mindful of, I got to be a 1-3 or faster. So, no, that's good. That's good. Hopefully some high school kids and some kids in our program or younger kids hear that and they start incorporating that into their bullpens, when they're with their pitching coaches and high school coaches. So moving on to the next thing, recruiting services and player profiles on Perfect Game, PBR. This is one of the most hot button topics, I would say, with our parents. From my perspective and my point of view is, do we need to make a recruiting profile on NCSA, for example? How much do you use NCSA? How beneficial is it for you to use? And, just giving advice in your opinion to a 16-year-old kid. Do you think recruiting services and those profiles are important?
I would say they have their place, maybe for, again, along the introductory level of maybe just allowing a coach to familiarize themselves with a prospect from a GPA perspective, an intended major, maybe a few clips, some things like that. But and we get a bunch of them. I mean, we get dozens a day from recruiting services all over the country that have somehow, through their research, have felt like maybe our program's a potential fit. And my kind of standard reply is, appreciate the interest, but we'd love to see you play. For me or my assistants to see a player play in person is going to be the number one criteria grade. Like, that's what the grade that I really value. I know there's a lot of other systems that grade out players, and there's some metrics and those kind of things that are certainly going to, if somebody has some really good metrics, well, we might have a little bit faster timeline to go try to see them play.
Mm-hmm.
But, and that did help then, but ultimately, like, we're not offering a roster spot to someone we haven't seen play. So we're going to have to see somebody play. I think those services can be good to kind of get someone's name out there, get on some radars of some universities and colleges. But I think a standard reply would be, like I said, hey, we'd love to come see you play. I know you're playing for Coach Shep. You're going to be over at this high school, next week. I'll come over and see a game. Or, hey, we've got a camp coming up in whenever, and, it's a 2-day event, and our entire staff is here and can work with you. You can meet with some of our players. You get a campus tour, be on the campus for 2 days, and we get a great eval of you. That kind of thing. So I think it can be good from a standpoint of getting your foot in the door. But for us in Piedmont, we're going to need to see somebody play in person, myself or my assistants, and that's the evaluation that I ultimately care about.
Right, and there's so many different. Again, I've said before on the podcast is there's so many different avenues to be recruited, and so many things that for some players it is a part of their recruiting and how they got seen or how they got in contact with the coach. But for other people, it had no bearing. And, there's so many different ways to get your name out there and to be seen. It's hard to tell every family to do all of them. And there's no one way, there's no, 5-step process to be a college baseball player. It's a lot of luck. It's a lot of hard work. And, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, unless you have negative things on your Twitter or your YouTube page or your Perfect Game profile, NCSA profile, having all of those things is not going to hurt you. It's going to help you get recruited. It's just a matter of how much. And like you mentioned.
And where.
Right?
Like,
yes.
Like what, the metrics may eliminate places for you, or they could really open some doors for some other places. So I think it's about, hey, I tell people this all the time. If somebody genuinely wants to play college baseball, there's a program for everyone in the country to play at. Now, where the rub comes in sometimes is people, want to play college baseball, but they also want it to be within 50 miles of their house. Well, now you may, depending on where you live, right, that could be a little bit trickier. So I think it's about, yes, it typically won't hurt you. It could get you a camp invite to a place that maybe you didn't think was a good fit for you. And now all of a sudden you had a great day in front of their staff, and now you're a fit there. And maybe they've got an academic program you're interested in and those kind of things. But ultimately, I think if you back the search process up to begin with the classroom and let the classroom be kind of the initial driver, okay, I've got an interest in this program, and here are some schools that, somebody who's advising me, helping me along with this process recommends that I can potentially play at. Let me see if they have some camps. Let me see if I can play, summer game, get one of their coaches out to see us, or attend a showcase or something like that, where I'm going to get a chance to be evaluated, and we move on from there. But certainly can be a good door opener. But for me, like I said, it all reverts back to I want to see someone play in person.
Scales, are you ready to have a disagreement? Are you ready to argue?
Hi, dude. What would be a conversation with my boy here without a
well, we're not talking
heated,
we're not talking Giants or Browns, but the take that you just had might be as bad as the New York Giants. I don't believe there's a place for everybody to play, because, and maybe that statement you made came with stipulations. One, how many college programs are there versus how many high school programs are there? Numbers wise, it just can't happen. And secondly, you're just not good enough. A lot of kids just aren't good enough to play college baseball, even at the lowest level. And some of it's because they're not talented enough. Some of it's because they don't work hard enough. Some of it's because, like you said, well, they've got too many filters on, like 50 miles within 50 miles, and it's got to be a Division I, and it's got to be this. And it's sometimes if you really want to play college ball that bad, you got to go anywhere. Like you got to go to North Dakota, you got to go to Wyoming, wherever it may be. You may get one offer, and that's your only shot. But I know what you mean when you say there's a place for everybody to play, but
everyone who wants to play and wants to play is up for, that's where you got to discern. Like, everyone can say they want to play college baseball, right? I can say I want to be a senior tour, PGA senior tour golfer. I would love that, but I'm not willing to put the work in to get to be that good, nor do I have the time or resources to do it. So
or
I
the
think
talent,
or the talent. But
yeah.
the PGA Tour is like, we're not talking about the major leagues, right? Like, if you're talking about college baseball and you are genuinely committed to, from a diet perspective, from a gaining weight properly perspective, to the weight room, to the skill training, to the gameplay, to the exposure, to all those things, that's someone who wants to play college baseball. That person likely can find a place. Somebody who doesn't do anything but show up for high school practice and game and doesn't work on their skills and doesn't do anything like that, of course, that person's not going to play college baseball, even if they say, quote, they want to play college baseball. But the invested player, if willing, can typically find something somewhere. I liken it to me trying to get into college coaching. I wanted to be a college baseball coach when I got done with my undergraduate degree. What I wanted was a full-time job that paid me enough money to have a nice apartment and buy a new car because my car was beat up, and start paying student loans and those kind of things. The one opportunity I had was at Ohio Northern University, and I'll always be grateful for Millen Rassick for giving me that opportunity to get my foot in the door. But I also know I made $125 a month my first year. So that was what I was willing to do to coach college baseball. Now, obviously, I had to get, side jobs and lessons and delivering the Lima News and doing all these other things. But that's what, you got to be willing to do it. And that's not a sob story or anything like that. It's just, it does parallel to a player. It depends on how far are you willing to go to play college baseball. Are you willing to walk on in some school in Wyoming, like you said, Well, maybe that is your opportunity. And then it's what you make of it when you get there.
I couldn't agree more with your college experience is going to be what you make of it. And it's, you ask a kid what do they want to major in or what are they looking for in a school, and they got to make decisions like, oh, I want somewhere rural or somewhere close to home. And it's like, they're 16, 17 years old. They probably don't know what they want because they've never experienced either one of them. But one thing can be sure, you can go to a school like the University of Georgia, and if you're not outgoing and you don't try to like find friends and find a group of people to hang out with and everything, you're going to have a bad experience. And you can go to the smallest school in the country, and if you're outgoing and you want your college experience to be, I had a great time playing baseball. I went to my fair share of parties. Then that's what your experience will be. But it's going to be what you make of it. And I try to, when I'm giving kids guidance and they ask me for my opinion, I try not to have them get hung up on the size of the school, the location, and all that, because again, I firmly believe, and I mean, if you disagree, that's fine, and some people will disagree. It's 1,000% going to be what you make of your experience. Again, if you want Piedmont University and Demorest to be like Georgia, you can be one of the most outgoing people on campus, and it can never feel small to you. So, but that's just my opinion on that. So
no argument here.
transitioning a little bit. Oh, actually, let's back up. When we get off here, we have a cool thing that we have partnered with. It's called Virtual Combine. I don't know if you've heard of it. Basically, it is a online service that houses all of that information in one spot. So if I sent you one of our players' profiles that has created a profile on that, you'd be able to see his grades. It'd have his transcript uploaded in there. It would have all of his metrics, any Rapsodo data that he's taken, it would be uploaded in there. Any video, it has a place for them to upload video, and you just click on the video tab, and it's just every video they've uploaded. And it also has a link to their perfect game profile, PBR profile. If they've got profile with any other things, it's got a link that you can see their Twitter and whatnot. But it's pretty cool. I need to send to you after this. So it's called Virtual Combine. But that's kind of what we want. They approached us, and Gio was like, "This is awesome," because coming from the college coach world, we know that when you get a player that you're interested in, you're going to do your due diligence. You're going to check their Twitter, you're going to check their Instagram, you're basically going to Google search them. And, they've probably heard enough, but we'll say it again. If they've got negative things on there, that's probably a non-starter, right? If they're liking and retweeting things that you're like, we don't really want this in our program, that's probably a non-starter. But we wanted some place to house all of that information for our guys. So it's got, lifting metrics. I got to show it to you. You'll be impressed with.
It's sweet.
Yeah, you'll be impressed with that. So, anyways, moving on. Understanding roles in college baseball. This is something that you sent me that you wanted to talk about. So I'm going to give you the floor and let you go on whatever tangent you want to go on, and take it where you want to take it.
That's fine. I won't talk about the New York Football Giants, but that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother. Nobody wants to hear that.
The best, the best thing that came out of that game the other night was DeVito's dad. He said
he knows.
What I love is he said that's your fourth down play, or that's your third down play. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, just don't talk about the Giants. I'm not going to talk about the Browns. You don't talk about the Giants. We for sure will not talk about Gio's Eagles. So
don't even get me started there. But no, I think this is one thing I wanted to touch on with you, because I think it's something that can be tricky, because when you get to college athletics, when you get into a college program, odds are, at least in most cases, you were at least some semblance of an impact player for your high school program, for your summer program. And it's probably been a long time, if ever, that you will that you weren't a everyday player, or you weren't a guy that had to serve in a reserve capacity. And as I thought about some topics for us today, and I thought about, there was a story from from the conference tournament this past year. We had two freshman outfielders. Okay. Neither of them played very much for us as freshmen, but both talented players. Both of them are pushing really hard to have, much larger roles this year. Time will tell where their careers go, but they're sophomores this year. But one of the coolest things I saw from an understanding your role perspective is with these two kids last year. Through the conference tournament, they did not appear in a game. One of them played 3 innings defensively in center when our center fielder came in to close games, and he did not hit, caught one fly out to center. The other one did not appear. Throughout the course of the season, they both served as, pinch runners, defenders, but definitely in a sparingly. What the two of them did do, though, is they both had a chart that they kept the entire season. They had a notebook with it, a binder, whether it was a quality at-bat chart, an infield defense chart, an opponent pitcher tendency chart, whatever the charts were, right? But two kids that completely took ownership of this is how I'm going to help the team, and I'm going to stay ready in case I get asked to pinch run. One of them, when we were fortunate enough to win the conference tournament this past year, in one of the pictures of the dog pile, the one kid is running from the dugout and he has a sliding mitt in his pocket. And I don't think we pinch ran the kid probably in 15 consecutive games. Like he hadn't appeared in a bit. But man, was he ready to go. Well, after the tournament, everybody's, whatever. And a couple bunch of guys were taking some pictures. And I happened to see the two of these guys asked to take a picture holding their two charts. Okay. The binders or their notebooks from their charts. Now, I assure you, they didn't come here to do charts. They came here to play. They came here to start and to try to be an all-conference player, and hopefully they both will be one day. But the acceptance of their role, and that's just two. We had a lot of kids do it last year that have that team first mentality. But those two kids, it's rarer and rarer now, at least here, that it's more of a taught skill now and not something that kids just come equipped with. But we try to tell kids, and I try to tell kids every time we speak with a family on the recruiting side, and we offer them an opportunity to be a member of our program. The next sentence I typically say is, we have great kids in this program. We're very fortunate to work with the kids we get to work with, but I genuinely do not care who plays. Right? I really don't. I don't care who dresses, travels, starts, relieves, pinch hits, plays center, plays short. I just care about the scoreboard, right? So if you want a bigger role, I can certainly appreciate that. I, in my own college journey, pitched 4 innings as a freshman and 90 innings as a senior. I was the down by 10 or up by 10 guy. And then I was a guy going out there, on a Friday or Saturday where, the team was counting on me to throw 7, 8 innings. So I've been both guys. But the acceptance of a role, part of accepting a reserve role is not accepting it in how you practice, but accepting it on game day. And that doesn't mean you like being a backup, obviously, because nobody does, nor should you. But your ultimate job is to pull for the guy that's out there and then to absolutely make it miserable for him in practice, trying to take it from him. And that uplifts the entire program. And the story there, I don't mean to go into story time, but me, maybe I haven't repeated this one to you.
I've never heard this one.
Stories.
I've never heard
All
this
right,
one
let's go.
For
Glad
the people,
I held on to it
for the people listening, it's not every day that you get told a story from Coach Scales that he hasn't told you 5 or 6 times already and forgotten. So the fact that I get a new story today actually is just makes me smile. Makes me smile.
Guy. But I mean, I hope I painted a clear picture. I maybe didn't tell it great, but just seeing those two kids, everybody was taking some pictures with all their buddies and stuff. And then as I walked back towards the dugout, I saw these two kids run over to the dugout, pick up their binders, and took a picture of the two of them with their charts. I still haven't even seen the picture, but I saw it being snapped, and I remembered on the way home saying something to my assistant coaches about those two and saying, just marveling at how they practice so hard all year, both of them, and still do to this fall too. They've had great falls, but just the ability to be such a team first player and accept the role that they were currently in, which was basically competing to be the 4th outfielder and trying to get some time, here or there. And it was just so cool to see.
No, I think you did a great job. And I've said before on here, coaches are human. We're human just like everybody else. To say that coaches don't play favorites to an extent, it's probably wrong because we are human, and typically our favorites are the kids that work the hardest, the kids that buy in, and the kids that do
the
things.
Ones that aren't distractions.
Yes.
I mean, no academic distraction. They're no behavior distraction. I play my favorites too.
Yeah. And it's
those kids.
It's just, people always say, well, coach has got his favorites and, he likes this kid more. Typically, it has nothing to do with the kid's ability. It's the kids that will pick up a chart and not give you grief for it. Because, you have so much stuff to worry about, as do most college coaches, on a daily basis. And you have so many things to do. On game day, you've got up until that 7th inning when you really need to see the chart. There's so many other things that you're worried about, and you're not thinking about, is so-and-so keeping a good chart? But when you call down to get that chart, you need it to be tip-top perfect. And if you got a guy that's just willing to just buy in and do that, it's like you just irrationally love that guy, because it's not a glamorous job, and it's not playing, and the kid came there, like you said, to play, but it just goes to show I'm willing to buy into the team and buy into, there's bigger things here than just how much playing time I get. Because, there's kids out there that will say, two scenarios: you can start every game and you can hit 4th, but your team's gonna win 30% of its games, or you can play in half the games and you're gonna hit 8th, but you guys win a conference championship. There's a lot of kids that will say, oh, I'd rather win the conference championship, but when it comes down to it, they would rather be the ones playing, and they don't care at the end of the day about wins and losses. And I think one of the things, a misconception can be, just because that's your role that game doesn't mean that that's your role for the rest of the season. That's your role for the rest of the weekend. That's the role for the rest of your career, right? Like, it can change. I know Jew used to always tell me, or tell our guys, listen, you have to be ready, because each year at some point you're going to get a chance to win a spot. Nobody knows when that chance is going to come or what it's going to look like. But if you're not ready to win that spot when your chance comes, it's going to miss you by. And if you're a good human and a good player, you might get more than one chance, but you might be like teeter-tottering in the middle, and you got that one shot. And if you're not ready, if you haven't done the right things, then you miss your opportunity, and hopefully you don't get cut, and hopefully it comes again another time. But you never know when that opportunity is going to come. And, those kids, I'm sure they stayed locked in on the game. When you keep a chart, you have to be locked in. I mean, it's like when we're on camps, the camps that we work together and we run them. And I have the little meeting in the beginning, and I just tell guys like, hey guys, like, this is what I need from you today. This is what I expect out of you. But listen, today's going to go a lot better if you just like talk to the kids and you try at camp. It's going to be a long day if you sit there and think about how you don't want to be here. It's the same for a baseball player. So I'm
no doubt, man. Accepting a role. It's okay that you want to be the guy playing, because like I said, man, I know what it's like to be a guy that doesn't play hardly at all, and to be a guy that plays a lot and everything in between. And, if you can embrace the fact that, at practice is when you chase that dude down, and at game is when you're his biggest fan. And boy, is that a good teammate.
I can think of one NFL quarterback actually that was asked in the offseason about what he's going to do if there's another starting quarterback that came in, and he said he was going to make their life hell. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's making that fan base life hell. I see
Oh
it.
my gosh, bro. Oh, there's. I knew that at some point we'd reference other sports and pro sports, but I can always appreciate that you knew exactly what I was talking about. So that.
Oh yeah.
That poor fan base.
Hey, you kept it so quiet because you're not wanting to jinx your Brownies. I mean, they're playing so well, but I get it. Just keep staying under the radar, baby.
I don't know.
That's it.
I don't know if I'd consider them playing well, but their
Listen,
defense
Dubs is their defense is really good.
All right, moving on. Because actually, I do love these last two topics, and they don't really involve recruiting per se as much as the first few things that we talked about. But again, I don't want this just to be pigeonholed as just a recruiting process only podcast, because I think we've had on so many smart guys and so many guys that I believe in what they do at their programs. I want you guys to shed light on how you develop or a pitcher, or how you develop culture, and all those things. So handling success and failure, and this I'm sure can be applied to a lot more than baseball. So go ahead and take this one away.
Yeah, I think in our game, certainly, maybe more than other sports, probably a bigger challenge because there is a lot of quote failure in our game. Even a pitcher throws a perfect game. Was it really perfect? Right? Probably not. You probably gave up some really loud contact. The stars aligned. The balls that were hit well were probably hit right at somebody. You probably didn't execute 110 pitches in a row perfectly, so on and so forth. Um, I try to hit these things head on with our players, right? I tell our guys all the time, like you're going to hit to your baseball card, right? Like I'll tell a hitter that, like, hey bud, you're going to make out 65 times out of your next 100 at bats. So, what are you going to learn from those 65 at bats? Like, how are you going to be able to not turn an 0 for 1 into an 0 for 3 or 0 for 4? Or for a pitcher, right? We're going to throw 35% balls or whatever it is, right? Where are those balls thrown? What conviction did we throw those pitches with? Are they missing in spots that allow us to set up another pitch? If we're trying to go away, do we miss further away? That's a disciplined miss. Or we miss over the plate. Identifying, I try to meet the fact that we're going to not only experience some adversity and some failure, but also the fact that we're going to deal with poor officiating, not poor in effort, just calls that don't go our way. We're going to experience you know hostile environments on the road. We're going to experience things like that, like nervousness and anxiety and those kind of things. Like we don't, at least in our program, I don't try to hide behind the fact that those things are real and just hope that, hey, just be tough, put your nose down, make the next play, right? Well, that's of course the goal. But I find that if we talk about the fact that we're going to be prepared to handle adversity, failure, etc., that allows us to move to the next pitch a little bit easier. And really, that's all I'm looking for. It's not that we're not going to fail. Nobody's perfect. I assure you, maybe in the first inning of the season, I'll probably call the wrong pitch, or position somebody in a way that ends up, costing us. I'm embracing the fact that I will make mistakes and I'm going to try to learn and study and do all these things, right? So I just try to get our guys to understand the failure piece, the adversity piece, like expect that it's going to be there. We've got a big sign in the middle of our dugout. It's a picture of a pitcher's feet picking up a ball and a hitter's feet in the batter's box. And that's all you can see is their feet, maybe from their high ankle area down. But it says, be great where your feet are. And easy to talk about, sometimes really hard to apply. We had, it's funny, we had we had the fortunate opportunity of scrimmaging at North Georgia this fall. And Coach Cantrell and his staff, and they do such a great job up there. And beautiful facility, first class, really, really good team every year. Such a great challenge for us to go up there and play. And one of our freshman pitchers went out there, and the first two batters he faced, he allowed home runs. And went out there and made a mound visit. And, it was clear that he was probably a little bit, I would say, nervous. If you asked him, he'd probably say yeah. And now maybe even a touch on the rattled side, as anyone would be. Welcome to college baseball, albeit a fall game. I went out there and, as you know, coaching against us, I do all my mound visits behind the mound. It probably looks weird to the opposition, but we get off the actual dirt area for a mound visit. We're going to step off the stress zone for a minute. But I looked right at him and I said, "Hey, you know what's going to be fun?" And you could tell he was like, what is going on? I faced two batters and I have a mound visit in my career, and he's going to be a very good pitcher here. I said, what's going to be fun is in about 2.5 years, I'm going to call you over one fall practice, and I'm going to ask you to tell the story to this new freshman about the first two batters you faced in your career at North Georgia, and how now you're one of our best pitchers, and how adversity was there, and how you felt, and the nerves, the energy, etc. Right? How you handled it then versus now, how you handle giving up two hard hit baseballs in a row, and your approach to the next pitch versus. My guess is he probably started thinking about, well, what's this going to mean for my role? Like, am I going to be a guy that can start games? Does coach think I'm, not a guy that could come in the seventh inning and we're winning the game and blah, blah, blah. Like, pitching with those expectations, pitching with or playing, with those consequences of I got this at bat. If I don't score this guy from third, man, I'm not going to get the start tomorrow, right? Like our game's hard enough in trying to play it with the weight of if this, then this. I mean, you're just making it that much more difficult. So, from a handling success and failure, I think people handle success a little bit better. We work hard in just trying to, bring all of our positivity when we are successful, just point it to our dugout. Like, just don't let it be towards the opponent, towards the crowd. Like, I always tell the guys, you hit a big double and it scores a bunch of runs. I assure you there's 30 guys in our dugout that are super pumped you just did that. Just yell at them. There's no need to look at the pitcher or the opposition. Just go ahead. You look at our way, you got some guys that are pretty pumped you just did that for you.
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head that it's never that one moment that they give up a home run or, they have a bad outing. It's usually not the end all be all. And that's not, the reason why they don't become a starter or they're a reliever instead or whatnot. It's so many things going up to that point. And, I like to tell the guys, like, when everything speeds up and gets super fast in a game, you basically you revert back to your training and your fundamentals. And if your fundamentals have been really, really good, you're going to have success more than failure in those those moments where everything is crazy and, your heart's beating a million miles an hour. Maybe it's, it's bases loaded, seventh inning, whatever it is, if you've trained well and you have confidence and you have conviction, you're gonna be okay. And, you may give up a rocket and it's right at somebody and then you just tip your cap. No, you got lucky, but you could lose the game because you fisted a guy and he hit a 16 hop single through the infield or he hit a bloop. Like, baseball's brutal. It sucks sometimes. You do everything right. You make the perfect pitch and a guy just hits it, or he gets lucky and bloops him somewhere. You can't live and die on every single pitch, every single moment. And I'm glad that you touched on when you do something well, like celebrate with your guys. Like, you don't have to direct it at the other dugout and then they're going to start getting chippy. Then you guys got to get chippy back because they got chippy. And that's one part of like summer ball that drives me up a wall is the chippiness. Like, I always tell the guys, like, if you're going to make a comment, like, make it be noticeably, like, make it be funny. Like, I want to get a chuckle out of it, but I want to know that you're joking. That way it can't be misconstrued as like you're just being a dick to the other team,
I always say, like, hey, we're in green. Like, if we're wearing a green top today,
I've heard
like,
that a couple times.
Yeah, like if somebody in our dugout says something to the opposition, um, it's something silly that they said in high school or they said in travel ball, like a guy, a pitcher, overthrows and it's like way up and they grunted and then, someone in our dugout, throw it harder. I'll just, I don't know who said it, but I'll say, I'll go, hey, we're in green. Get your mouth off the opponent. Like just try to make it about us. Like, hey, we're in white. We're in gray. Get your, say something good that we did. Kind of thing. And I'm sure our guys, they chuckle at it, but for me, it's again, we're going to celebrate our success. When we're fortunate enough to have it, we've worked hard for it. We'll celebrate it with the people that are in our uniform on that given day. And we always try really hard to be that type of group, that type of program that, I hope that our opposition and officials know that, our standard is, we're just not going to engage in the official or the opponent. At least we're going to try to work hard not to be that guy.
They need to let you engage in the official. You go to bat.
0 ejection career now. We've got a running total of 0.
You don't have any?
22 years, 0.
You've never been ejected.
Warned not many, probably warned 8 or 10, but my college coach, great coach, like 1,300 wins now at this level, Division III level. Never got ejected in my career, and I asked him about it after. Like, weren't there some ejectable worthy calls, so to speak? And of course, he said, yeah. I can't help the team from the stands, and he used to say the only reason that it's warranted to be ejected is when you feel like the official is taking the game from your team. And if you could take a step back and objectively look, that is so rare that an official is one-sided taking the game from one team. That just doesn't really happen. That's not that there aren't, officials that are having a bad day, but are they genuinely taking it from us? Probably not. I don't tend to argue a safe out call at second base when the official is 4 feet from the base and I'm, 180 feet in the dugout. I tell my assistant all the time, Coach Craig, who does such a wonderful job for us. But Hayden will say something sometimes, and I'll ask him, right there in the moment, did you see that with your heart or with your eyes? Right? Because with my eyes, we were out, but my heart had us safe and winning the game, and the game ended. So trying to separate what I so desperately want to be the call versus what did I physically see, and try to take the emotion out of it, which is, I would say, a learned skill. I jokingly tell my assistants this, but like the few times a year where I say maybe predict that something's going to happen and then it does, like right away, I jokingly say like, hey man, 1,000 games at this level, right? Like when you're around this level for, the length of time I've been fortunate enough to as a player and a coach, you see a lot of things and you can slow the game down a little bit. And I think it allows me to maintain composure in conversating with officials. And I ultimately want to control what we're doing with our team to the best I can and try to help our team win to the best of my ability. That I can't do that from the stands, So that's just, we're at 0. We're trying to keep it there. I'm sure one day somebody will have a short fuse with me and I will make one of my passive aggressive comments. And, it will get me. But to this point, knock on wood, I haven't been ejected just yet.
I think I've only been ejected one time in the last 3 summers, and no, twice. Twice last summer. One time I deserved it, and other time I did not. I was genuinely mad. I was more mad that he ejected me than I was his call. I got ejected walking back to the dugout after asking him about balls and strikes, and I just said, that's BS under my breath as I was walking to the dugout, and then he ejected me, and I said, for what? He's like, I told you no swearing on this field today. And I was like, I didn't swear. He goes, I heard it. I was like, listen, man, you got rabbit ears, but if you're going to you're going to eject me for that, I'm going to come get my money's worth. So I came and got my money's worth. But up until that point, I don't think I'd have been ejected 8 years. It's been a while. I mean, you just like it. Knowing where your line is with each different guy is a learned skill.
There's no doubt. That is so accurate. That is so spot on. And, we get guys in our association um, that we see a lot. I've been here a long time, 20 years. So we've had a lot of these officials, and I think, some of them will, that you can maybe bark a little bit more. And then others, like, hey, he's not going to put up with that. So, you run the risk of being asked to leave
Mm-hmm.
if you go after a certain official with some tone. I mean, I am a New Yorker. It is in there. I just have to, we just got to shove it down
Mm-hmm.
and, don't let it get out there because ultimately, like I said, for me, it's about doing the best I can to help our team. And I feel like I can help our team better from the dugout than the stands. Hopefully, that's the case.
All right, Scales. We'll finish up with the lightning round.
Okay. Go Lightning. Bring it on.
Super quick questions with super quick answers. They are
Love it.
not important. Best sunflower seed flavor.
Oh boy. Salt and pepper, baby. Cracked pepper. Love it.
Big Green Monster or Chicago Ivy?
Chicago Ivy. Been to games at both. Like Chicago. As a New Yorker, I wouldn't pick a Boston anything. So
Favorite Gatorade flavor?
purple. I know that's probably out there. Purple.
No,
Grape, dude.
that's where it's at. Riptide Rush.
Yeah, fire.
Oh, I know the answer to this one. Pitching duel or offensive clinic?
1-0 Lions, baby. Let's go.
Day or night games?
Night, but can I take night in April and not February?
Yeah, you absolutely can.
Yeah, give me night in April though, so it's a little bit warmer,
Uh,
but night game,
are you pro?
especially at the jug.
Are you pro or anti shift?
Pro man, if you want to shift, shift. If you don't like it, hit it elsewhere.
Pre-game superstitions.
Too many to list here.
I'm
And
not.
my
I'm
assistant
not
coaches
surprised
could
by that.
probably do a whole podcast on that. Let's just say there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
I need to get. Speaking of, I need to get Hayden to come on, and
Yeah, you do.
we're not going to talk anything important. We're just going to sit and BS because I want to give him endless amounts of hell, just because
Please do.
I like doing it.
He's my guy, man. I love that guy. I'm so lucky to work with him.
You're such a little liar. No, I'm just kidding.
He's the man, dude. He's the man.
I do love. Hayden is funny. I do love him. He's You got to get on him though. I mean, I last two showcases I worked with him, 15 minutes late.
Hey, he's delusional in one area. He thinks Michigan's the best football team in the country. So he's so biased when it comes to Michigan football.
He like bias.
You
You
know,
can't even have a conversation with him. Bias.
you can't. You can't. He thinks, well, it must be pretty good when you know what the other team's running, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, like we don't need to open up that.
Right.
Favorite baseball player?
I was a big Andy Pettit guy, Mariano Rivera, Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada.
Oh, weird.
Probably those four guys.
Weird. All things in common.
Right.
Favorite MLB ballpark?
I would probably say it's not Yankee Stadium, too corporate. Wrigley was awesome. The old Rangers Stadium, not the one they're in now, the one prior to that was sweet. Houston was awesome. Diamondbacks was really cool.
Have you been to
We
PNC
toured
Park?
Dodger Stadium this year. Yep, PNC's awesome. Baltimore is probably on the short list, though. Baltimore's beautiful.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Adam Sandler or Vince Vaughn?
Vince Vaughn for days.
Oh my God, I knew I liked you. Everyone else has said Adam Sandler. I'm like, what? Why?
Vince
Why?
Vaughn is the man. Hey,
He's the
listen,
best.
the last thing we need to do is point fingers. You're a problem. My guy, Vince Vaughn.
I could quote Wedding Crashers for days. So
all day.
Coach, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. We'll come back next week with a new episode for you. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. Coach, you got anything to plug? You got any camps coming up?
No, we just had one, but certainly love to stay in communication with interested players. Feel free to reach out to us via social media, email. All our stuff's on the website. PU Lions Baseball for our social stuff. Our coach's contact info is out there. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Shep, it's always a treat to talk with you, man. Can't thank you enough for having me on, giving us a chance to promote our program. And, wish you guys nothing but the best, except for Gio's Eagles, obviously.
Yeah, of course. So I think we're in agreement that the Eagles can kick rocks. But, obviously, I don't think this will be the last time you'll be on. I'm sure you'll pop on, in another week, and we'll figure out something to talk about then. But, I appreciate you coming on and dogs, man. I don't know if you can hear them.
You're good.
Anyways, I appreciate you coming on, and good luck this year, and